To motivate them, we are doing some kind of cross-border workshops, and girls are talking to them. So that is how they are motivated, and now they are helping us very nicely. Also, the Indian police is very nice. And this is the rescue. After rescue, they are repatriated. They are repatriated, and the most difficult part is to rehabilitate them into the society. Because when they say Maithili Nepal, then people think we are full of HIV. So we are stigmatized. Because in some places we have, in 29 districts we are there. So it is easy to contact their parents when in these 29 districts. But if children come from other districts, it's very difficult for us to contact, because then we have to tell the police. So the police, they have this wireless system, and they are not, their attitude is not that good, or I don't know. I don't know how they are trained, but they go to the village and say, "Who is so and so? Your daughter has come to Maithili Nepal." So everybody hears about it. So Maithili Nepal, oh, she must be HIV positive. She should not come to the village. This is how they react. But then now we are also doing counseling to the parents after they come to us to get their child. We do the counseling, and then we also give them, because as soon as the girl comes, we find the criminal, as you saw, and then we start the cases in the court. When the criminal is caught, we do not send the criminal straight to the police station. We bring them to our place. It's illegal, we know that. It's not legal, because we are not the state. We are an NGO. We are not supposed to bring the criminal to Maithili Nepal directly. But we bring them to us, because when we file the cases, sometimes it is the police and the criminal, they get together and then they say, "Oh, Maithili Nepal forced us to say, yes, you did the crime. But I didn't do it, that this person is not a criminal. Maithili Nepal just said it." So that is why we record it, and then after recording, and then we file the case in the court. And so far, we've done about, now we have 85 people in the jail who is already convicted. The longest term one person had, he was Krishna Pariyar, and he had for 90 years. Because our law only has 20 years, but he had for 90 years, because he had only his wife, 3 wives he had sold. So he had sold many girls, so multiple cases were on him, so he had 90 years. And the last case, last person who was convicted, is convicted for 35 years. So we are doing the legal, it's not only that we are bringing the girls or doing something, we are doing the whole circle of, from rescue, from awareness, prevention, rescue, repatriation, and reintegration also. And we do, when the girls are in, when the process starts in the court for the case, it takes about 1 to 1.5 years. It's very lengthy. It takes a long time. So during that time, the girls are kept in Maithili Nepal, and they are given different kinds of training. This, people have misinterpreted also, saying that Maithili Nepal is not sending the girls home. But then if we send the girls home, then it is, then the case becomes hostile. Traffickers, cousins and their relatives try to tell the girls to withdraw the case. If they withdraw the case becomes hostile and we lose. So that is why we do not send the girls home. So during that time, we keep the girls with us and give them different kinds of training. After the cases are over, we send them out to work. Then now the most important work which we are doing is also, I think, there are 26 official borders between India and Nepal. India and Nepal, where there is customs, immigration and police. So Maithili Nepal started, we did not know how to give job to girls after they come back. So what we thought was, they are the expert, they know they know the traffickers, they know the ways of being trafficked. So we put them at the borders, 5 girls in each border. So now there are, in 10 borders, there are our girls, 50 girls are working there. They are all survivors of trafficking. So every day they are intercepting 4 to 5 girls, and sometimes they are very lucky, they also get hold of the criminals. But again, after we started doing this work, police also started to send their women forces there. But again, we are not the state. So as soon as our girls intercept, the child and the man has to go to the police. Again, if they make a deal there, then our girls have nothing, no say. Because if the police says, oh no, this man is the brother of this girl, let her go, then we have to let them go. So there is, the coordination is not very strong, but recently police has again agreed to have to work with us. They are trying to work with us. So this is the transit homes. After they are intercepted, if we get the criminals, we put them in the police station, but the girls are put into the transit home and we inform their parents. When the girls are intercepted, we do not send them directly home, we put them in the transit home and call their parents and give them back to them. So the interception part is also very important. Sometimes parents do come to collect the child, but many times I think the children are not taken by the parents. They leave it to us and say, okay, you can keep the child and give some training and start their life as they want. So this is the transit and the interception. Now, what the factors behind trafficking? Everybody says poverty in Nepal, but we in Mighty Nepal, from our experience, we say it's gender disparity. Because of gender disparity, all these things are happening. For example, in the village, if a man comes to lure the girl, he never says, I want to take your child, as just now someone said, I want to take your... This is misinterpreted in the whole world, globally, that Nepal is selling their girls, which is a misinterpretation. Nobody in the world, I think, would sell their daughters. We also do not do that. People who come to lure the girls, they say there is a job in the city, she has to get married, she needs money to get married, so why don't you send your daughter to job? So that is how they lure the parents. And the parents have a family meeting, and after 2-3 days they call this man and say, okay, a man or a woman, whoever is involved, it's mainly man and a woman, they call them and say, you can take them, and next day she must come back. And they say, okay. So 1 year's salary they give in a head, 300 rupees, so 3,600 rupees, and then later on she never comes back. So this is how they are trafficked. So men also need money to get married. It's not only the girls. So why do they say your girl is getting big and she needs money to get married? So there's a gender disparity. Then education. Everybody says in Nepal, the government says education is free. We are doing 275 support in the villages with girls for education. Every year, at the beginning of the year, in April, we are paying 3,500 per child. Per child. That's only the fees in the government school. It's not in the private school, in the government school. So if there are 5 children and 3 girls and 2 boys, the parents would send the 2 boys to school, the 3 girls would not be sent to school. So we are lobbying with the government and saying, if you say it's free, it should be free. So hopefully, I think very soon they will do this. So this is one, education. Gender disparity, education, and then no job opportunity. As soon as when the girl, if there were jobs in the villages, the girls would not be lured and be taken into the big city for in search of jobs. Then the open water, then poverty. So these are the factors, and then the types of trafficking are, before it was